Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Electric Bike Journal. Today we're talking about the Ride1Up Roadster V2 Gravel Edition. This single speed, lightweight e-bike is ready to hit some gravel roads. We've had a blast on it. Let's talk about the specs and then we'll share with you how we think it rides. Coming in at $1,245 is the Ride1Up Roadster V2 Gravel Edition. This is a class 3 single speed electric bike. It's very lightweight at about 36 pounds. It shares a few things in common with the Roadster V2 that is a little bit cheaper, but there are some changes done to this bike to set it up for some more gravel and more adventurous riding. Starting with that drivetrain, it has a 350 watt rear hub motor with a custom tune for Ride1Up to really get this bike to perform a very unique and, in our opinion, good way with really good pedal assist power between those 5 separate modes of pedal assist. It has a 252 watt hour battery integrated into the downtube there, and the overall package with that aluminum frame, really thin tubing, that battery fits in there, very sleek, it's very low profile, and from afar, not likely to have people suspect that it is an e-bike at first glance, which is something that we think is really cool, and we do like how everything's getting so tight and thin these days on a lot of electric bikes. As mentioned, the frame is made of aluminum, as is the fork. There are some bottle bosses located on the seat stays there, as well as mounts on the rear dropouts to allow you to adapt and attach a rear rack. There are also 2 bottle bosses located on the seat tube, which will let you put a bottle cage on there, or you can get the battery range extender from Ride1Up for just over $300, and that'll give you another 252 watt hour battery that mounts there on the frame. Overall getting this bike up over 500 watt hours, which is really cool because with a 20 to 30 mile range with that smaller 252 watt hour battery, range anxiety is something that I think a lot of people would have when riding this bike. It didn't really affect us much. I did kill the battery a few times, but being so lightweight and so minimal of a bike, there wasn't a lot of drag, and was able to keep a very comfortable 60 mile an hour cadence of just pedaling back to the house to put it back on the charger for the next day's ride. Another cool feature of the frame we see here is on the seat stay, there is a split in the frame. And that split allows you to use that Gates carbon belt drive that this e-bike comes with. The belt drive from Gates is a really cool offering from Ride1Up. We would consider it an upgrade to a chain drive system. And our thoughts behind that are that a belt drive, specifically the Gates carbon belt drives, are quieter and there's no maintenance. So over time, you're not worried about having to lube your chain or how dry it gets and how loud it gets. That belt drive system is extremely quiet, which is super nice, and Gates has a really cool app that when you remove the wheel, you have to loosen everything up, and therefore you lose your tension in the belt. So with their app, you can set it next to the belt, and as you adjust those chain tensioners to pull that wheel back in those dropouts, you can pluck the belt. It sends out a little decibel reading into the app and lets you get it into the right tension. So that way when you're pedaling, everything feels nice and tight and will get you on the road. On the handlebars up here, we do see that controller, and this being a class 3 bike, they even went as far as adding a thumb throttle, which is a really cool feature. Granted, if you were to be really using that thumb throttle kind of full time, that 20 to 30 mile range would likely be affected, as it's going to be drawing more power off that battery than it would if you were just pedaling. But from stop and go traffic or stopping at a stoplight, being able to use that throttle to kind of get back up to speed really quickly without having to pedal super hard is a fun and cool feature. Granted, I will say that when we were out on gravel roads and more technical terrain, we didn't really find ourselves using it too much, just because we were caught up in the moment of actually riding and enjoying ourselves. The Ride1Up Roadster V2 Gravel Edition uses Tektro mechanical disc brakes with 160 millimeter rotors, both front and rear. The left front brake lever up here has a nice little bell on it, which is cool to just alert people on trails or on bike paths to say, hey, I'm coming, and it comes with the bike, so anything to allow your presence to be further seen and heard from other people so you don't scare them is really great, and it looks really good on that lever, and it's super discreet and kind of disappears, so cool touch there. And lastly, the Roadster V2 comes with 700C aluminum wheels and will come with WTB Resolute 700 by 42C gravel tires with a really cool tan wall, which gives this bike a really cool look. Unfortunately, I ran over some glass, so I had to change out those tires for some new ones. And now I do have the Schwalbe G1 Ultra Bites on there. They are the same size, so nothing has changed in the riding performance. These tires offer very equal to the same grip out riding, and unfortunately they don't have that tan wall, so it is a little bit more stealthy looking, but hey, we like it either way. Before we jump into the ride experience and how this thing is out on gravel roads, some of the things that we've changed and modified to this bike to adapt it more to us. The first and major thing was addressing the handlebars. The handlebars that come with it were just a little bit too narrow for us, and we opted to swap out for some wider bars to give a wider stance to have a little bit more control, especially on rocky roads and those gravel roads that we wanted to go ride. Additionally, we added this frame bag from State Bicycles. It just Velcros around the tubing, and it's all black, so it looks really stealthy on there, fits very nicely, and gives us enough storage to throw some tubes and tools in there and maybe a few snacks for our trail rides. And to increase our visibility when out riding, we have put on the Redshift Arclight Pro pedals that recently came out. These pedals are a little bit more aggressive than the previous Arclight pedals. They have little pins in there so you get extra grip on your shoes, and they do have those Arclight LEDs inside of them, so you can set those up to get some flashing or solid lights to give you that extra visibility. And before we jump into that ride experience, I wanted to talk about comfort on the Roadster V2. We, in that process of changing out tires from the ones that we ran over glass on, I tried a few different ones on there before we landed with these Ultra Bites, and the Schwalbe G1 Speeds were a really great tire to put on there and kind of took this a little bit more back towards being a regular Roadster V2 as opposed to the Gravel Edition. Now, those speed tires can handle gravel and handle gravel fairly well, especially in drier, not necessarily as rocky terrain. And they're great for around town. And those tires were 50C. So if you're looking to add a little more comfort to this bike and have a really big tire on there, we fit 50C tires on there, which are really massive tires. In the end, we did land with these Ultra Bites, which are closer to that 42C size, and have really enjoyed these, and they do ride very well on not just rocky terrain, but around town as well. And the last element of comfort that is very important to us and should be important to you is the saddle. The saddle here is the original saddle. Generally, with a lot of bikes that we get in on review, the saddle is a point of contention and something that we're generally thinking, should we swap it out for something a little bit more us, that's more comfortable for our riding style? Ride1Up has surprised us. This saddle is not only a nice sportive low profile saddle, it has a cutout in it, so there's pretty good flex in the saddle itself, which is great for absorbing a lot of the bumps in the road, and it looks good on the bike and really has us thinking that Ride1Up might be pushing to get more sportive saddles in the future of many of their bikes coming. Only time will tell, but for now the saddle on here is really great and we opted to just leave it. So that's the Roadster V2. Not much has changed. It's a really great bike, nice and lightweight. Let's jump into those ride impressions to see how it is out on those gravel roads.
All right, let's talk about the gearing ratio right now. Right now I'm in pedal assist mode 5, decent incline, but it coming with an almost 3-to-1 gear ratio, pedaling up this steep stuff is kind of a lot of work. Not quite getting the cadence I wish I had unless I stood up and sprinted it, but having that pedal assist 5 and a 350 watt hub, be able to get up it, no big deal. This is pedal assist 3, still very comfortable. As a whole, the saddle, like, I'm not riding a chamois or anything, it's comfortable. I put a lot of miles in on this bike and not had the need to have a different seat or need a extra cushion in there with a chamois or something, so that speaks a lot to the saddle. Now, something I feel like people forget often when they're riding electric bikes is if you're in a pedal assist mode, just leave it there, I don't think that's necessarily true. A bike like this definitely reminds you about that. Up here, pedal assist 5, it's too much. Kick it down to 2 in the flats. It's extremely comfortable. You're able to cruise around and just feel supported at the right speed. And you're saving battery too, so when you get in those punchier spots, you can boost up to 5 and use that reserve energy, I guess, for that aggressive steep stuff. So like I said, this bike is a lot of fun to ride out here on this dirt. You feel confident to kind of cut through and weave through things and obstacles. It's easy to get over and feel very in control. I did move the brakes in a lot because I personally think one finger on the brakes is what you need. But dropping in pedal assist 2, I'm going downhill. I don't need a lot. But for that steep stuff, and if you're doing maybe more steep riding in your area, getting a hold of Gates, putting in the numbers that you have on their website, and seeing what suggestions they have for different belts and sprockets to go on there would definitely be worthwhile. We're going to be continuing to adapt this bike and make it a little bit more us, bars, stem, all this stuff, brakes, and definitely changing out the gearing on that belt drive will be one of them. Going fast is great, but being able to pedal up the hills is a little bit more important to me. We spent a lot of time on those calipers and those where they mount to make sure everything was level and really even, to make sure that we're having even, good, quality, consistent braking power. I know some people knock on mechanical disc brakes and hydraulics better, and I'm sure there's benefits, absolutely. I do like hydraulic, but if you have mechanical, spending the time to make them work the best is always worthwhile and lets you know your bike more. So even on this downhill slope coming in at 18 plus miles an hour, really good braking power to slow down comfortably. If people are hiking, walking, other cyclists, maybe some construction equipment that you need to watch out for, you can trust those brakes. The bike's comfortable. This is the large frame, and at 6 feet tall, it's perfect. The reach is maybe a little short, and maybe a little shorter than I'm used to, but I can still get up over it. And like I said, dropping that seat post to get the seat out of the way on those chattery descents where you're not sitting down anyways is always a wise thing to do to give you more room to move your body around. With a 252 watt-hour battery, range anxiety is something that a lot of you might bring up in the comments. Yeah, it is a short range, 20 to 30 miles. But if you did 20 to 30 miles of this, you probably had a great day. So it's not that big of a deal. And for a very affordable price for that range extender, you can get an extra battery that mounts here on the bottle cage and plugs in there to that charging port. And that'll give you an extra 252 watts. So you have just over 500 watt hours of battery power, and it doesn't add much weight. It's about the weight of a full water bottle there. So I use this frame bag on there to kind of store a few extra things, and it's easy to take off. If I lock this to a bike rack, I can just unvelcro that and throw it inside the truck.
Well, as you can see, the Roadster V2 is a very capable bike and rides really comfortably, and it really just is a fun, lightweight, and really minimal bike. There's not a lot going on. It's motor, brakes, and a single speed belt. So very stripped down bike, which is a great platform and a great price point to get into your first electric bike. Or if you already have one and you're looking for something a little bit more sporty and lightweight, it's a good direction to go and will ensure that you're gonna have a pretty fun summer out exploring. Well, in that ride experience, I highlighted a couple things that we found important to talk about when considering the Roadster V2 as your next bike. The gear ratio is great for flatter terrain, more mellow hills, especially if you're riding mostly paved, and it being class 3, where it sits out of the box is a great ratio to keep that cadence comfortable when wanting to do 25 miles per hour or higher. Now, if you do live in a steeper environment or you're tending to ride maybe gravel roads or single track trails that are steeper, that ratio is gonna be a little difficult to pedal on that steep stuff. And really, you're not going 28 miles per hour uphill regardless. So we would encourage going onto Gates' website, looking at their charting and seeing some of their suggestions for different belt lengths and sprocket sizes. Playing with that a little bit is something that we're gonna continue to do. Now, when you do adjust that and maybe change that ratio to favor those hillier, steeper areas, it will affect your cadence and your pedaling speed when you want to go fast. So there is a give and take in any of that. That's just the woe of single speeds, but you get that really clean look and you're not having to worry about a derailleur hitting on anything. So it's worth it. And unless you really live in those steep environments, the drivetrain and that gearing ratio is gonna be great for you. The other thing I mentioned were the brakes. A lot of people harp on mechanical disc brakes, hydraulic superior. And although we do genuinely love hydraulic disc brakes, I would favor a quality mechanical disc brake over a low quality hydraulic disc brake. These Tektro Aries brakes are really good quality, and we just spent a little bit of time cleaning up some of the paint and the surface areas of where those brakes mount and really setting the cable tension and the offset of the brake pads to get them dialed so that they sit and are making contact the best way possible. And that would be our suggestion, rather than thinking that they aren't good brakes or thinking that you need hydraulic. Spend the time and adjust these to get them dialed perfectly, and it's gonna go so much further and save you money. And when you're buying a bike at this price point, you're already in it for such a good deal. Save your money and buy some nice tires or a nice seat or whatever it is you want, maybe a frame bag. You have extra budget to play with and don't need to replace things that aren't necessary to be replaced. Overall, the Roadster V2 Gravel Edition has been a really fun bike to ride, and I'm really excited to continue to transform this bike still on a budget and see what different things I can address with it and how I can make it even more my own. That stripped down profile and not having a bunch of bells and whistles is really great to really transform a bike and make it your own. Out of the box, it has been fantastic to ride, and I'm glad that we got a lot of miles on it in that condition, and it's only becoming more and more fun as we fine tune it and make it more for us. If you have any questions about the Roadster V2 Gravel Edition, please leave them down below. It's a really fun bike, and we'd love to get you some solutions to some of the questions you might be wondering. I know for a lot of you, range anxiety and that smaller battery might be a concern. It really hasn't been a big deal, and as I mentioned earlier, if you got 20 to 30 miles of fun gravel riding and that was your Saturday afternoon, that was a good day, and you're gonna be able to use the max of the battery. And if this had a 700 plus watt hour battery in there, I would say that that extra weight and how it would affect how this bike rides wouldn't reward and be a greater payoff to eliminate that range anxiety. I would rather kill the battery and have a good time with a nice lightweight bike than have a really clunky heavy bike that I went through 30% of the battery on. And for those of you that are interested in the Roadster V2, we are going to continue to play with this bike some, change the gearing ratio, maybe change out the seat post, the handlebars, the stem. We're just going to go through it and see what all we can do to this bike while keeping things on a budget to really transform it into being a very unique bike specific to us. And that could be something that opens up future options for yourself. Well, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe. We'd really appreciate that as it helps our channel grow. And we still are doing a bike giveaway right now for an Aventon Pace 500. So over on our channel, we have a video there. Leave a comment and you will be entered in to win an Aventon Pace 500 on us. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next one.